Good evening. I'd like to call the Derry Conservation Commission meeting to order, and we will start with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. We have emergency exits in the back of the room here and another one here to my right. If there's an emergency in the building, please do not use the elevator, use the stairs. If you need assistance getting help, ask one of the commissioners to give you a hand. I ask everybody to silence their cell phones for the meeting, please. And we're going to start off with the approval of minutes from March 3rd, 2025.
I'll move that we accept the minutes as written.
Actually, I'm going to just table that for a second. Let's announce the people. Let's start with my right. Just introduce ourselves.
Hi.
Good evening, Charles Foote, Derry Town Council Liaison.
Jay Hildreth.
Grace Reisdorf.
Rick Pizzanga.
Bob Sproul.
Eileen Chabot, good evening.
Elizabeth Carver.
Great. Sorry about that, Grace.
Okay, now we'll make a motion to accept the minutes of March 3rd, 2025 as written.
I'll second that.
We have a first by Grace, second by Bob. All those in favor say aye.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just have a couple comments.
Sure. Go ahead, Eileen.
Okay. Just a few little things. The first paragraph on site plan review, the second line should be Beaver Lake Ave, not Beeve. And these are just little things.
Sure.
Beach houses to be raised on the fourth line should be R-A-Z-E-D.
Right.
And then towards the end of the paragraph, it said, he reiterated Ms. Chabot's remark regarding the silt fence, but I don't see anything up above about what the remark was. I believe I spoke about needing a silt fence and also using what New Hampshire Fish and Game recommended. If that could be added to that. And then in the second project for map 22, lot 1231, for Meridian Land Services. Towards the end of it, it said, Ms. Chabot referred to the stabilization matting. I specifically recommended jute matting. If you could just add that, J-U-T-E, Tammy. And then I wasn't sure on the second page, the third line down for the Derry Track Club, it said that Paul Mahone, Community Durations Officer. I'm not sure if that's really his title, durations. I'm not sure about that. Maybe it is. I don't know. Just a question that I had, but that's it. So I'd go along with, if those changes could just be made.
Okay, so why don't we just strike his title from that and just use him with his association. Bob, will you accept those friendly amendments in your second?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a first and second with friendly amendments. First by Grace, second by Bob. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay, next we have a site plan review, Tim Peliquin, Promised Land Survey, regarding a request to extinguish a pedestrian easement at 12 Jewel Lane. Sure, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim, before you start, and while you're handing those out, just give the commission a little heads up. So I was contacted by Promised Land and the property developer, Mr. Benedict, probably a few weeks ago now, regarding this easement. I did travel to the property and take a look at where the easement was, and then we talked with Tim and Mr. Benedict to have them come present this evening. Go ahead, Tim.
Okay, yep. Good evening. For the record, my name's Tim Peliquin. I'm a licensed land surveyor. My company is Promised Land Survey with Dave Benedict of Dreamcatcher Homes, who's he has a purchase and sales on the property from the Coopers. This property was subdivided and approved for a subdivision in 2023. That's when the plans actually were finalized and recorded at the Registry of Deeds. As part of this, what was a 5-lot, basically a road frontage subdivision that required zoning board approval and planning board approval, and of course, as part of the planning board approval, would require technical review committee signatures, and of course, the Conservation Commission was part of that, and you guys did sign the plan at that time. The 2 lots that we want to talk about, if you will, I'm gonna work through this with your 11 by 17s, if you will, to start. And I can go to that board at any time if you want to see the plans. But on the first 11 by 17 plan that you have, it's sheet 1 of 6 in the lower right corner. It's more of an overview plan that I just want you to take note of. And it was a 5-lot subdivision. 1 lot was at the end of Eastview, 2 lots were at the end of Stoneley, and 2 lots were at the end of Jewel. This subdivision was carefully laid out as larger lots, as opposed to connecting a road from Jewel Lane to Stoneley Drive, which was an option, would have yielded more lots, but the Coopers at that time were just more in tune with Mr. Cooper, Ed at that time, one of the Cooper brothers, wasn't doing very well, so they eventually passed, and so they were trying to settle some of their lands. So this is why it kind of went like this, as a 5-lot subdivision as opposed to a road and getting involved with that. The 2 lots at the end of Jewel is our focus tonight. Now, if you look to the next 11 by 17, which is in the lower right corner, sheet 3 of 6, on those 11 by 17 plans, it may or may not, it might be pretty faint on your copies, and I apologize, these are photocopies where they've been highlighted, but at the end of Jewel Lane, and I'll just say the controversy at this time, is there's something called a proposed pedestrian easement, 25-foot wide. That's at the end of Jewel Lane, which goes across, which is number 12 Jewel Lane, and crosses parallel, running east-west, running westerly to the town of Derry's land, which is map 9, lot 102. Or map 6, I'm gonna get to that in a second. No, yeah, map 9. Nope, map 6, sorry. If you look at the next, so there's a proposed pedestrian easement that was platted and went to the Registry of Deeds. Before we look at other sheets coming, I will tell you that that was discussed somewhere along the way. Don't know exactly where. It was probably at this commission meeting at one point. We talked about it. I believe I recall talking about it with you all. And the Coopers were here, and it was somewhat agreed, yeah, a pedestrian easement would be a good idea for us to access that land in the back. And that was a discussion, and in good faith, I put it on the plan, or the plat. Went through zoning board of adjustment, went through planning board approvals, and nowhere else was it ever mentioned as part of any condition of approval. So when the notice of decision came down from both the Conservation Commission and thence the Planning Board, never was the pedestrian easement mentioned. It was still platted on here, but these plans went to the Registry of Deeds, and there was never an instrument, and this is important, there was never a deed to accompany that easement to the Conservation Commission's land. So that's a problem. So it's a legal problem. I'm not an attorney. I do have an ESQ at the end of my name for other reasons, but I have legal knowledge, and I will say 100% that there's a cloud on this easement. There really isn't an easement there, but there's a cloud on this plan based on the fact that there's a proposed conservation easement, a proposed pedestrian easement platted across this parcel. Now, what was promised, what wasn't, I believe it was with this commission, and I'll hear from you guys in a couple of minutes after I'm done my little spiel, and we could talk about that. But when Mr. Benedict from Dreamcatcher Homes came in to buy these parcels, basically both parcels have wetland crossings. And I know I did a site walk with you guys too, because they're two streams, and we looked at those, and we used all proper mitigation efforts to properly cross these two streams with driveways as part of building on these two larger 5-acre lots. Mr. Benedict would like to build his home, the home, at the end of Jewel Lane, much closer to the road. The one named Lot 86-18, the 5.88 acres to the left, I will tell you that's impossible to build up next to the road. The wetlands are right there, and he will exercise the wetland permit that he has in place to cross that wetland and access. The Lot 19 would have a series of wetland crossings to get to it. Those are permitted by DES, but he can avoid those wetland impacts and crossings and build a smaller home up next to the end of Jewel Lane. So that's his desire. However, that's where this whole proposed easement came in, as proposed pedestrian easement came in as an issue, a fly in the ointment, if you will, or a potential problem. So what we'd like to do, maybe now we can keep talking. Let me keep going. So I want to focus in on your piece of land that you guys own. I believe you got it in a tax sale in 1932 or 1934. I did a little research on it. But the next 11 by 17 is your GIS map. And on that GIS map, you'll see a series of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those correlate to what's at the beginning of the staple, which are pictures from those vantage points, looking at each one of those. And we can kind of talk about that as we go. But lot 06102, parcel ID, you have frontage on where Olson Road meets Ballard Road, exactly where those two roads meet. Before Ballard Road was extended, Olson Road basically continued through, if you look on that sheet, number 2 and number 5, it's continuing right down that. It's an old road through there, double-walled, an old road that runs through there. The town of Derry has maintained ownership of that road. And then you own the larger parcel, 6102. If you flip to the next sheet, and it's very poor because somebody's got a good copy. I don't, because I gave away the original, but, oh, you got the original.
Well, you can see it.
You got the original, good. You'd see, that's just a Google imagery, and it's kind of useless, so we'll probably move on from that. The GIS is much better. But I'd like you to look at the next two sheets, which are the recorded sheets for when that land was subdivided in 1980. you'll see where Olson Road ended on what in the lower right corner is D-9967, sheet 1 of 3. You see where Olson Road ended. You see a section of basically an old road running through. I have it highlighted as best I could for you all. And then running basically westerly up a line 94132, if you follow that line. And
Tim,
it continues.
excuse me one second, Tim.
Yep.
What's the width in the narrowest part of that paper road? Like, say, in the middle there?
I walked it and looked at it. I can only estimate, I'm not really going to try to scale this plan, but I would say 40 feet
Okay, thanks.
at its narrowest point between the stone walls. The next sheet, sheet 3 of 3, shows that a little bit different view of that, but it's the same road. And what I'd want you to see is that where Olson Road ended, there's the old road continued through. The town of Derry maintained ownership of that, and you own the piece that you gained by tax sale in, I'm going to say circa 1932. That I think the Conservation Commission now might control. I would assume so. I think that's why I'm here, right? Is this on your list of parcels? Okay. So what we'd say, what we'd like to talk to you about is potentially helping more proper access, helping us not make this any type of, I don't want to even say legal fight, because there's no threat here. I'm just saying, helping us make that proposed pedestrian easement go away at the end of Jewel Lane. That's a very steep embankment that goes down. It's not really a viable access. It will never be used by anything other than pedestrian. That's what it was always intended for. 25 feet is excessively wide for a pedestrian easement, and I believe the neighbors here are here from Jewel Lane that are not in favor of having an easement at the end of their cul-de-sac. I don't know how they got notice of this, but they're here. They can speak as they want. But I would say our proposal was to try to help make that proposed access easement go away, and Mr. Benedict beside me is willing to help provide more ample access at the end of Olson Road for the Conservation Commission to be able to access their land. Now, I think, lastly, if you will, just bear with me, and I'm sorry for the long preamble, if we just look at the pictures at the very beginning of the packet, the 8.5 by 11s, number 1 is the picture at the end of Jewel Lane, basically, and I included the telephone pole so you had a perspective, and some trees have been cut on that line. You can see a stone wall and grass, that's the abutter, and I'm looking right up where that proposed 25-foot easement was proposed. And this downward slope doesn't do it justice. It drops 12 feet. So it's straight down. Number 2 picture is standing on Olson Road, looking up that old Olson Road. So there's a driveway that exists across there, and you can see that on the picture. But I'd like to move to number 3 because it's a little bit more exemplary. Number 3 shows a small stream running through the very beginning part of that old Olson Road. Now, you can see the water, right, on number 3. But if you turn to number 4, that's the same stream, but going down to the embankment, and it's a little bit hard to see, but I can tell you there's a 20-foot corrugated metal pipe across what is the old Olson Road. And unfortunately, and you can see my Jeep up on what is now Ballard Road in the background of picture number 4, but there's a culvert in place where the Conservation Commission may wish to access this property. It's a very easier wetland permit to ever get because there's an existing culvert there and it's maintenance. Basically, what's happened is when they built Ballard Road, they have a culvert right in the back of my white Jeep, if you can see that in that picture. There's a culvert going underneath Ballard Road. And there's a lot of water that came through there and it washed over that pipe. So the pipe's clogged, basically, and it's not working properly. There needs to be some fill brought in, probably, some clean out of that pipe, and a little bit to make that bed more proper access. Then lastly, I just want to turn to sheet 5. That's now beyond the stream, and it's looking up that old road. And now you can start to see there's a stake in the middle. That's about in the middle of that road. And Chairman Bazanga, you asked about the distance between those two stone walls. This is about at its narrowest point where there's a couple of big trees in here, but the stone wall is there, and that's what I'm suggesting, 35 to 40 feet between. And you can see the existing path that continues straight up that hill. So, but there's fallen trees. There's a couple big trees in there. And what my client is proposing to do is to negotiate with this commission some to say, hey, look, can you make that easement kind of go way over there? Nobody, not that they didn't intend it, it got overlooked, and there's a problem there. And in lieu of that, can we help you have proper access on the other side in some manageable way? Because honestly, it makes, from my perspective, I have no skin in this game, to be clear, but that makes so much more sense, I think, for everybody. Even the folks here that are behind me that don't want it on the end of Jewel Lane. But also, my client would be able to build a house much closer to the road and would be willing to help flush out that pipe, literally, probably bring some gravel in and maybe cut some trees within the access way, some of the fallen trees and other things, and give you much more proper access, about 400 feet to your land. And it's a legal access. The town of Derry owns all that land. You own that road, and you own, of course, your land. It makes just a ton more sense. It's much more viable access. All right, that's a long preamble. That's more than a preamble.
Thanks, Tim. Bob, before we start rifling questions, I think I want to just kind of frame this if I could. So I was summoned by the planning director when this came up, and we dug into it too. The perception from the planning department was that when this development was done, this easement was put in place for the residents of the development, for the people that live in that development to be able to walk down and use that conservation property. It wasn't designed for people to go there and park and, like some of our other conservation properties where we need parking and stuff like that. The intent from their perspective was that. Secondly, our mission as a conservation commission is to always look at things from the lens of a conservation commission, which is preservation of water quality, preservation of property, and access to those conservation properties. Those kind of our three most important kind of guiding principles. And then equity for both the people that are using the conservation property and equity for the people that maybe live around a conservation property. So I want to keep that in mind. Tim, we do not have a public hearing scheduled. However, we can hear from these folks if the commissioners allow it. We'd have to have a vote by the commission, and we can do that either before we ask questions of Tim or after we have asked questions of Tim. So the commission would have to agree to hear from the constituents, but not as a public hearing because we did not have a public hearing posted. And that's going to be the will of the commission. So first off, let's hear from the commissioners on, do you want to hear from these folks that are in the audience? We're not obligated to, but we can. Give me a nod, a yes or no.
I'd say yes.
Yes. Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah? Everybody on this side? Okay. Do you want to hear from them before we talk to Tim, like right now, or do you want to hear from them after we talk to Tim?
I think we should hear from them right now.
People agree with that? Yeah? All right, so Tim, I'm going to ask you and Mr. Bennett to vacate. Folks, if you want to address the commission, please step up, state your name and address. And you guys you all came out, so if let's hear what's on your mind. And just into the mic, your name and your address, please.
Hi, my name is Sue Lindeman. I live at 3 Jewel Lane, which is off the circle that's there. And I'm not necessarily opposed to a access road down. We know we have hunters come and park at the end of Jewel Lane and walk probably to the town forest. What I find disturbing is the concept that you would take a cul-de-sac that is where children learn how to ride their bikes, that we play it, and turn that into a parking lot, which is what I had heard, which brought me out, is having a parking lot in a small neighborhood is, I find disturbing.
My name is Greg Boyko. I live at 10 Jewel Lane at the very end of the cul-de-sac, and my property would actually border this proposed easement. I'm going to say after living here for 40 years, I am dead set against there being any changes there. We've had enough of a change already. I really want it to just stay the way that it is. I'm very concerned that it'll turn into a parking lot. We have had problems with homeless people in the past there. We have Redfield Estates Association owns, I think, 75 acres down there. And we have had problems with people trespassing on that land and going to basically homeless encampments there. So we are concerned that you're going to change it somehow. If you have the opportunity to have Ballard and Olson Roads be the place to go, you should work towards that and making it as good as it possibly can be. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not a public speaker. I've had a heart attack a couple of years ago, so it's really hard for me to get up here and ask you to do this.
You're doing great. You're doing great.
So just please take us into consideration. I've lived there for 40 years. Some of my other neighbors have too. We don't want to really see it change that much. And take advantage of what Mr. Benedict is offering. If you're going to, if he's offering to fix the roads, that's great. But we already have problems back there. We don't need any more. We really don't. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for being a little bit upset about it.
No, you're good. You did well.
good
Thank
job.
you.
Oh, you did an excellent job,
Yeah, you did well.
sir.
Hey,
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
stepping
you for
up.
talking to
Takes
us.
courage to come up to that mic. This guy's gonna have no problem. This guy.
I think a lot of the strong points have been made, but I prepared a little something of my own here. So good evening. My name is Edward Boyko, and I live at 10 Jewel Lane on the cul-de-sac where the Conservation Commission is proposing to build a new access road into the town forest. And I would like to express in the strongest possible terms my opposition to that plan, not out of resistance to conservation or public enjoyment of nature, but because I consider it a bit reckless, totally unnecessary, and disruptive to the lives of the residents that live here. First of all, there's already an existing access point on the opposite side of this very small patch of forest. There's just no reason to add another one, especially carving it through the cul-de-sac. Second, we've already gone over this, the terrain is extremely steep and unsafe. If someone gets hurt on that slope, it's almost guaranteed that lawsuits would follow, and the residents on the street are going to get dragged into it. That's really not a hypothetical. The liability is real. It's just really a matter of when, not if. My third point would be that the cul-de-sac cannot handle traffic. We already have issues with people kind of parking irresponsibly. Both sides of the street can get clogged. If you add tourist traffic or event goers trying to use this as like a trailhead, emergency vehicles could get blocked, they won't be able to get through. And it's not just an inconvenience, it's a direct threat to public safety. Fourth, and this will be my final point, this would tremendously insult the peace and privacy that we've enjoyed here for decades. The residents on our street, including my family and neighbors, have personally maintained this area for over 30 years. We mow it, we clean it, we take care of it, we love our street. And opening it to the public invites littering, loitering, damage, and undoing these many years of voluntary care. So in conclusion, I would just say this is a quiet residential street. It's not a public park, it's not a parking lot, and it's certainly not a tourist destination. So just please consider the people who live here. Feels like it's sort of being forced in, really without any form of real community support, without a super clear legal standing, and without proper regard for the consequences. So I urge the board to reject any proposal that creates a new public access point from the cul-de-sac on Jewel Lane, and to explicitly oppose listing this area as a tourist destination or forest entry on any town material or website. Thank you for your time and for listening to the voices of the residents here today who actually have to live with the impact of this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the record, folks, there's been no discussion of a road, a parking lot, or anything of such happening on that cul-de-sac. It was actually brought to us by the planning board through the subdivision process, just so you guys know that.
Good evening. My name is Judy Forsman. I live at 2 Jewel Lane. My husband and I have been residents of Redfield Estates for about 35 years. It is a circle. Redfield Circle is a circle. It is not a throughway. And Jewel Lane is just a cul-de-sac off of that. I believe that making a permanent walkway through Jewel Lane would have a lasting impact on our property values, because it would no longer be considered the secluded neighborhood that entices new buyers with children and pets. We've had a common problem in the last few years with underaged four-wheelers and motorbikes, because we have common property that has the pond and the swamps and then the town forest. We have kids that peruse that whole area very loud. Every weekend we listen to it. And I think that if that walkway were to be put in, we would have either a racetrack that now has a whole complete loop, or they would make it their own personal playground. And I just can't see that as anything possible, anything good could come of that, when we're already dealing with that. And that's my points. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Is anyone here from the Ballard Road side? From Olson? Okay, all right, yep.
Hi, I'm Mal Forsman. That was my better half. I live at 2 Jewel Lane. I had a whole bunch of stuff written out here, but a lot of it's been covered, so I'll try to get ourselves through it. I think that with that access where it's proposed to be right down in front of Greg's house, aside from the issues of the slope there, I used to walk my dogs right down along the wetland and out into the town forest and use that pathway. So I'm pretty familiar with it. But if you have people parked at the end of the Redfield, first of all, with 2 new driveways there, they're going to have to park on Jewel Lane. They're going to have to park up Jewel Lane. Unless they park all the way down on the right-hand side as they enter Jewel Lane, they're going to be parking on people's frontages. I know I try to keep my frontage up, and the neighbors do too, so I'm concerned about cars parking on the frontage. And if they're not considerate of the people in the neighborhood, they're going to be making it more difficult for us to get in and out of our driveways. It's kind of funky the way the driveways are. They're all pointed in one direction because of the way that they were zoned at first, and not something we want to get in here, but it's just something to think about. If cars are not parked properly, they can block driveways. So that's the parking. The other thing that concerns me is that path that goes right down in front of Greg's house. We're a passive solar community, so all of our windows are on the south side, and we're facing the town forest. Greg and I have the same kind of house. There are 13 windows in that house. 11 of them are facing the south side. So people walking on that walkway will be looking in Greg's house like it's a fishbowl. They're not going to be that far away. I think they're about as far away as the wall, if not maybe a little bit further, but it's kind of an invasion of privacy. You're going to see every room in his house except for 2 if he leaves his shades open. I mean, you don't want to have that type of environment when you open up your shades, you got people walking by. I think that needs to be a consideration. Let's see. Talked about the family neighborhood. We already have traffic, let's see, driveways. And I think, I am concerned, I know that being the Conservation Commission, you've looked at the water, but after walking back there a number of times, 4 or 5 or 6 years when I was walking my dogs, there's a lot of water that comes off of those hills. There's no stream that comes off where you can say, oh, we can cross it here. There are different times of the year and different days when I walked out there, I had to either go up the hill a little bit to go around the marsh, or I could stay on the walkway, and I've seen that that metal pipe underneath, and it's way down, and I don't think it does a decent job. I think that needs to be a consideration, because my view out my backyard is the marsh, and I'd hate to see something happen where that marsh was somehow, the level was diminished, and all of a sudden we have more of a swamp than a marshland. We already have a pretty good mosquito issue in the summertime, so that's a concern of mine, that is considered. And finally, if the access is from our end, if that's the way it's going to work, people are going to walk down the end of that walkway and have to turn around and come back. That comes right out to people's backyards. I mean, when I walked down to the end of that street with the dogs, I had to make sure that I didn't allow them to go charging forward, because they'd go right into someone's backyard, and I could look into the back windows. I hope that there are people from those houses who have been notified that this might happen, because I was always concerned about invading their privacy, and that would affect their privacy again, and the safety of the people there and their property. So those are my thoughts. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Val Connolly. I'm a resident on Olson Road. I actually came for personal reasons, I didn't know much of this was going on, but given the opportunity, I'm glad.
Val, I'm going to have you just get a little closer to the mic, please.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I came for personal reasons myself, but given the opportunity to speak on this right in my neighborhood, actually, that's really thrilling. I personally also use that access area. It sounds like that it was put in for the residents in the area to use. I myself am interested in the wetlands there. I do a lot of vernal pool identification and wildlife documenting over there. I think addressing the culvert would be nice, or I think that widening it or further.
Val, you use the paper road one, or the one that's being talked about here? Do you use the one on the other side, on Ballard Road?
Yes.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
thanks.
But I think that widening that and furthering that, while you said that no parking lot or anything has been discussed, I think that widening that could lead to, the increased activity and things, but I have concerns about how further developing it and things nearby might affect the vernal pools in the area. I've been following them for a couple of years, so. yeah, I wasn't prepared to speak, but just putting my thoughts out there. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, you got Tim and Mr. Bennett. You want to come back up?
Oh, of course.
Can I just say something?
Sure.
I know you guys, the only one that's visited the lot was you,
Sorry,
right? But I want to just kind of show you.
you either have to be either go to that mic there, or you can go to that mic if you want to stand up.
Okay.
It just has to be recorded, that's all, Mr. Benedict.
So this cul-de-sac, right? You could almost fit this is for the people that haven't walked it. I know you did. This cul-de-sac is so small, right? Probably one of the smallest ones in Derry. You could almost fit it in this room. This is how small this
Yeah,
cul-de-sac.
I remember walking it as well.
What's that?
I remember walking it as well. I went on that site
It's
visit.
really, really small. And when you come down here, there's a driveway right here for the neighbor.
Right.
There'll be two new driveways right here, and they're literally 20, 30 feet apart. And then there's another driveway right here, and then there's another driveway right here. And then you got this cul-de-sac in the middle that these people take. If this was if this thing was made to go, there's no place for anybody to park there. If you had 2 or 3 people parking this cul-de-sac, they're not going to be able to get out of their driveways. If there was a fire, the fire department's not going to be able to get to their houses. It's just a very, very, it poses a really unsafe condition for all the people that live on that cul-de-sac. Extremely unsafe. That's all I really wanted to say.
Thank you, Mr. Benedict.
And so, and I want to say, like, to be really clear, and I said it, got wind of this meeting. It didn't come from me or us, I can say, but
Maybe a
it's
notice
good they
from
were
the
here
town?
because I'm glad they got to voice. I'm sorry?
It's noticed.
You
Yep.
must have gotten a notice from the
Yep.
town.
So good for them, very well spoken to. And I'm glad they got to voice their concerns. I will say, this did go through a public approval process a couple of years ago, and they would have had somewhat knowledge of what was going on here, although I don't think this pedestrian easement was really spoken of much, to my knowledge, because I represented it, and I apologize. I'll blame COVID. It was during COVID. Yep,
Yeah.
there you go. All masked up and whatever.
I'm gonna bounce a couple of questions. I know the commissioners have questions.
Definitely do.
So we're gonna do that. I'm gonna just run through mine quick. And again, I want to try to kind of frame this if I could. One of the things with conservation properties, and this is kind of new, a new initiative by, we'll call it the new leadership on the commission, is we're addressing, we're trying to mitigate fire risk on all of our conservation properties. And we're actually pretty deep into that. Our land manager has been meeting with the state and local fire personnel on how we're going to handle that. So always be looking from the perspective of the commission that these properties not only have to be gotten to by foot, but they may also need to be gotten to in the form of a logging operation or a fire risk mitigation operation. So we need to keep that in mind. And then just a couple of questions that I have, Tim, for your applicant is what's the road setback on Jewel Road for the house?
Yep, let me give you the actual answer. I think it's 35, but I'm gonna confirm that. 35.
All right, 35. And can the we'll call it the proposed pedestrian access be included in that 35 feet from the perspective of zoning? So does the setback have to be 35 feet from the easement or 35 feet from the road, and the easement can be included in that setback?
I'm confused on the question, and it's only because if there was an easement there, it has to touch the right-of-way, right? It has to touch the right-of-way of Jewel Lane for it to, so setback would have nothing to do with it in terms of the easement. If you're asking about can you squeeze a house in that small building envelope,
No, I'm not asking that.
Okay.
I'm asking that the road setback that build the house is 35 feet.
yes?
That's from the road to the front of the house.
Yes.
Can the right-of-way, pedestrian easement, whichever, whatever we're calling it, that 25-foot contested property be included in that 35 feet? Or is it 25 feet and then plus 35 feet?
Oh, it's 25.
It's 35.
Well, you-
No, I think what he's saying is,
Is it 35, does the house have to be 35 feet from the pedestrian access or 35 feet from the road?
It can be 0 from the pedestrian
It can be
access.
0, okay, that's my question. So the pedestrian access can be included in the 35-foot setback.
Yes.
Got it. I'm going to ask you, after the commissioners are done, what help means in relation to access on Olson Road. And I don't want you to answer yet, Mr. Benedict. I just want to define what help means.
Sure.
Okay? I'll turn it over to the commissioners. Eileen, I know you have a question.
Yep. I really appreciate all the comments everyone made. One question and concern I have before this commission decides on whether to remove that easement, I did go on the site visit for this project, and I do remember that steep embankment very well. In fact, I almost fell when I was going down. But what I want to do before we took a vote on removing that easement, I would want to revisit the minutes of that meeting that we had and discover why there was an easement put on the plan to begin with. You know, if it was something that we requested, why perhaps we requested it, and revisit that before we were to take a vote on your request.
I looked at the minute. I looked at those minutes, and as best I could ascertain, I couldn't find it.
Yeah, and so did the planning office.
Huh?
The planning office looked at those.
We looked.
They looked for them, they couldn't find them?
No,
or-
because the easement wasn't put in at that meeting. The easement was put in on the original subdivision plan that Cooper filed back in, what, 1980? Was it 1980?
A long time ago.
Oh, way back when?
Yeah.
So there's no.
I'd still like to see what we said, though. What did we say, you know?
So there was, from what I've
Yeah,
ascertained from planning, because they took a pretty deep dive on this, they couldn't find the easement even presented in that plan, right, Tim?
Right.
Yeah,
Correct.
it wasn't even in the plan.
it wasn't in the plan that you presented to us? You know, we did a site visit, you presented a plan to us, and you asked us to approve it. It wasn't on that plan?
No. It came after.
Came after? Wow.
Well, let me clarify, Tim.
Please.
So the easement didn't come after.
Okay,
The easement came much earlier.
much earlier.
It was just never identified on any of the plans, including the plans that went to the planning board, until their final meeting on it. It was then discovered by everybody. And that's when I got the call from planning.
Because
That's
I
the way
know
that's-
there's been, you know, over the years, I've been on this commission for a long time, and over the years, there was always a concern about our town forest being landlocked. And that's why I really kind of wanted to revisit those minutes to see if this was some sort of discussion about having an access so that it would be no longer landlocked.
no, it's not landlocked.
It's not landlocked.
No,
It's not at
because
all.
you got the access off of Olson.
Because you have the
Well,
access.
How good is the access off of
That's
Olson?
10 times
I wanna-
better.
Pictures.
It
show it.
is. It's so much better.
The access,
It's not noticeable, I'll tell you that, because I went up there and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
drove back
I
and
know.
forth trying to
Until you
see.
cross, did you see the
Yeah,
cover?
maybe that's where, you
It's
know,
off the road
Yep.
in the alignment.
Once you get the other side, though, you're like, oh, yeah, there's a road here.
It
And
just
no
needs to
road.
be
really
cleaned
is a
up a little
road.
bit.
It's
Oh, yeah.
really, is visible and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's a
visible.
road. It
It's
just
a
needs to be
road.
cleaned up
And
a
you
little
can,
bit.
don't
not just
notice
on
it there.
paper, but you can actually walk it.
It's an old paper road.
There's a pathway.
It's an old paper, it was a class 6 road at
No,
one
it's not a
time.
paper road. It's
Now
a-
they changed it to a paper road.
They used to drive that road 100 years ago.
But you
If you
can
cleaned it
walk
up a
it.
little bit, you could drive a fire truck down there, a logging
You
truck,
can.
cars, anything you want. You drive right to that property
Okay.
with no problem. And like you said, this other one, There's an embankment that's like 8 feet.
No, I know about the embankment.
you
Like I
can't
said,
drive
during that
no
site
fire
visit,
trucks over that.
I almost fell. I had to have like a walking stick when
but
I was trying to get down
How
there.
are you going to drive a fire truck or a logging truck over that?
Yes,
It's
no, you're right.
impossible.
You're absolutely right, sir.
And it was
I
never
totally agree.
intended for that purpose anyway.
Right,
It was
well-
always intended to be a pedestrian easement. So it had
But you say
none of that.
pedestrian easement, that means you would walk, or you would use that for walking purposes, and
Yeah, but
Right.
people are going to be falling down that
It
hill.
the way
was-
I remember, yes.
It's the
'Cause
same way.
I almost fell down.
It's the
that
same
day.
way.
Yeah,
And like he said, lawsuits are going to start happening, and it's just going to be a total
right.
nightmare.
No, I totally get that, and I appreciate everyone's input on that point.
The proposed, however, the proposed 25-foot pedestrian easement came in to be across this land, I would suggest, just to cut to the chase, was a mistake. It doesn't make sense. What does make sense is the access that you have. And we're talking about that as an easement, but it's not an easement. It's
But
not
this-
an easement.
This easement, I mean, that's what it shows on the plan.
Yep,
This
but
was put
there's
on
no
by the
deed.
planning board? I just
No,
want to kind of
no,
confirm
no.
that. No, it was not? Who put it on there?
No,
Mark Cooper?
yeah,
Oh,
Indeed.
he put it on there.
Yeah. He told me he did it out of the
The
good,
Coopers did.
the kindness of his heart. That's what he told me. Take that for what it's worth. That's what
And
he
what
told
was the
me.
purpose, I guess?
Not public.
He said,
good.
I said, Mark, why did you put that there? He goes, Dave, I did it out of the kindness of my heart, maybe to help this thing move along a little better, to get this to go through. He threw that in to make it look good, one of those deals. But it wasn't, we talked to the zoning board, the Concom, the planning board. Nobody has any recollection, nobody knows nothing about that. There was never mentioned, nothing.
I'm gonna,
I do,
I
'cause
want
I-
to, I want to just move it
I
along.
want to be clear. You can move on.
Yeah, let's move it along. Yeah, Eileen, do you have anything else?
I just was wondering also, would we have an opportunity to walk it one more time before we remove it?
I don't think anyone's agreed to remove it yet, so
Okay,
that, yeah,
right.
we can do it. We can, I think any due diligence that we're going to
Yep.
need to do, we should do.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Bob, do you have something?
Yeah, so, obviously, you've looked at the deed for these lots, and there's no reference at all to
No.
reservations?
No.
Okay. And then the other question I kind of have is, it's showing essentially a cul-de-sac that was going to be the end of the road where our access goes in.
Correct.
Is that area big enough for like a car or two to park off of the town road rather than have them parking on the pavement?
That's going to be I'm going to just say a gray area. The town's going to have to exercise its muscle if you choose to in the future. The answer is yes. You own that cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
There's currently a driveway to a piece of
Yep,
land that
I
sits
see.
way in the back, that has all their gravel over that. But
Yep.
you have ownership on that. It just would have to be marked out sometime, negotiated with that owner that's there. But there is
Yep.
ample land to put a spot there for 2-car parking, 3 maybe. So that's a few steps.
And it's flat
outside of
enough
what
and-
we can do. But I will say legally, you own that cul-de-sac.
Okay, that's what that was what I was trying to get to. And then kind of the final question, do you see if we decide to give up that right of way, a quick claim would be adequate?
Yes, in my opinion. I'm not an attorney, but you'd want legalese to look at
If we're
this.
not
but
positive what we hold.
Yep.
Yeah,
It would appear, again, when you got this land in 1932, around there, by a tax, somebody didn't pay their taxes, basically. And this road did exist back then.
yep,
That was before Ballard Road ever went in. So Olson Road ended here for the most part, or it continued on, more correctly said. There wasn't houses up there, but.
yep.
And lost my train of thought. But basically, you own the road, like you always would, right? You own the road in fee.
Yep.
That's what it's called.
Yeah.
And then you got a flagpole-shaped lot, basically, with that right of way. That's
I'm all
always
set,
been your
thanks.
ample
Yeah.
access. That is your viable access to this property, not through this residential area.
I'm all set, thanks.
Okay, anyone on this side, questions? Grace?
I was just looking, I kind of kept track of all the issues that these folks have with Jewel Lane. And it seems to me that moving it over on Olson, the access on Olson, would eliminate every one of those, possibly even the noise from the four-wheelers, and that activity might shift to the other side of that
Sure.
property. So,
And hopefully, the town of conservation, if you chose not to have four-wheelers, hopefully you could signage it and somewhat police
yeah,
it.
I noticed right now that's an all-access, no restriction property.
Gotcha.
So that can be looked at again, though, too. That's it.
Jay, do you have any questions for the applicant?
So thanks for this detailed plan and your photograph number one showing the easement off of Jewel Lane, the cul-de-sac. It certainly doesn't look like it's something that would be enjoyable, or it would need to be developed to be safe. It seems like it's really crowded, as you described, in this area. And my concern is the ATVs, do they ever access off of Jewel Lane down this cul-de-sac? And could they even do it?
To my knowledge, no, there's not an ample access across that land to access by ATV. So I mean, could they? Yeah, I'm sure they can get through most places, but I haven't seen evidence of that, I will tell you that.
Yeah. Rick, with concern about access, more with fires, seems like that if there was a way to keep this and have it be just as like an emergency basis, access to the fire department for a brush fire. It seems to make sense, and certainly the Ballard Road area looks so much more, has more potential for meeting the needs of the Derry citizens and that backing off and away from the Jewel Road citizens.
So my only rebuttal to that would be, thank you, is that we're looking to have that easement extinguished across there, not as an emergency fire, because it was only intended, at least back in the day, was for pedestrian. So there's no wording at all on the plat of anything more than that. So it's pedestrian access. So I think that's even, first of all, this easement, it's not really an easement. I'll just say that. It's wording on a plan. That's all it is. And we're trying to make that wording go away. And we're offering to help with more viable access down on the other road. So we should and that's where I think you might want to go. So to have it stay there as an emergency, I don't think that's not what we were asking. We're asking it to go away because it's going to affect the house sale at the end of Jewel Lane, first of all. To have a pedestrian easement running right up beside your new house is not favorable or viable. And there's liability with it, both for the town and for the new homeowner.
Anyone else from the commission? No. So commissioners, I am not 100% sure that we have the legal authority as a commission to release this pedestrian easement. I would say we probably do not. However, we do have the ability as a commission to seek a legal opinion for us to extinguish this easement. So given the authority, then I think it comes back to us as a commission to vote on whether or not we want to extinguish this easement or not. Before we go down that road, I would want to know what the appetite of the commission is. So I think this evening, we're going to find out if the commission is interested in pursuing the extinguishment of this easement. And if we have a vote on that, we'll ask our council liaison to bring it to the legal department for the community and give us guidance on how to go about extinguishing the easement. So if it's voted in the
There's
affirmative.
not one existing there.
That's a little bit of a flag.
We'll call it a legal position on what's
Good.
on the plan.
On what exists.
Yeah, a legal position on what's on the plan.
That's better stated. The only thing I'd say is from the planning perspective, so he can continue on with what he's trying to do, because once it goes to an attorney, back, forth, 2 months go by and a lot of money, right? I would suggest if it's just a letter to say what you guys voted in terms of that and send it to planning, and let them deal with it, because I think this goes away pretty quickly. I don't think
Well, planning is given-
attorneys are going to
planning is
spend money
given-
on something that doesn't need to be spent, in my opinion.
I agree. Planning sent it to us.
Yep, and I think they're just looking for your vote that this might not be necessary,
Okay. So,
or that an agreement's happened or something.
so I can hear from the commissioners individually or collectively. My suggestion is that we call for a vote, or if we get a motion and a second, to send this, if the appetite of the commission is to extinguish this easement, and it's voted in the affirmative, we then send a request to the legal department for the town, asking if we have authority to extinguish the easement. We want that authority back to us by our next meeting, which is in 2 weeks. At that meeting, given the authority that we can extinguish the easement, if we choose to extinguish the easement, we would then vote as a commission to extinguish the easement. And then at that point, I think it would be, then planning would have to work on that suggestion. What are people's feelings about that?
Like I said before, I'd just like a quick opportunity to go down there one more time and just take a look at it on the ground before, like, I think we're kind of jumping the gun tonight to say which way we'd go in terms of whether we want to extinguish the easement. I'd just like an opportunity to just walk it again.
All right, so we have one commissioner that wants to do a site walk before we even call for a vote? Okay. All right, so then I need a motion. I need a motion from somebody to move forward. 'Cause I can't make them. All I can do is move them.
I would, I'm kind of working with Tim on this a little bit in that there is nothing to inspect there. There's something that was on paper. It was a proposed easement. There is no physical easement to go inspect.
But it's-
There's a route that was drawn on a map.
But it's
No,
right here, but
Eileen's-
it's
correct.
right
no,
here on
Eileen's
a
talking
signed
about-
plan.
Yeah, I think
It's right
Eileen's
here on a
talking about the
signed
other
plan,
access.
Bob.
Eileen, are you talking about the one that's being proposed or the access from the other side?
No, I'm talking, he's talking about extinguishing the easement that's shown on here.
So you want to look at that?
I want to look at that,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, all right. All right, so let's.
And I'd like also to look at
But there
Olson,
is
because I'd
nothing
like
there.
to see
So
what's
if you're
there.
going to hold on to it, there's got to be an instrument that actually transfers that property to the town.
Yep, sir, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, Bob, I don't disagree with you, but planning has told us basically that we got to sort it out.
Okay.
And that's,
I'm
and
not
that's why we're here.
Yeah.
So they're passing the buck.
Yes.
Right,
So
we're
they're
not-
unwilling
yeah.
to sort it out, so we need to sort it out.
No problem.
So we can, like I said, we can sort it out in the manner that I suggested, but we have one commissioner that wants, at least one commissioner that wants to do a site walk prior to calling for that vote.
I'd like to look at
So
both,
in either of those
both
scenarios,
points.
I need a motion and a second.
I'd like to make a motion that we consider the extinguishment of this paper projected easement after a site walk is provided. Is that enough?
I think it's enough, but I think you're you're talking about extinguishing the easement after the site walk, and I think it might be a little cleaner if you just request the site walk, if that's the goal of the,
Right.
Okay.
yeah.
Because
So
we
you
want to
wanna-
use whatever we
Yeah.
see on the site walk to decide,
Make a
you know,
decision.
so.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, not hearing
Okay,
a
so-
second, not hearing a second on that motion, I'll call for another motion.
You gonna try it, Eileen?
Okay, I'm going to make a motion that we proceed with the site walk of not only the easement, but also the Olson Road access, and take all the abutters' comments into consideration, and that we then come back here and propose a vote on whether to extinguish the easement, based on our findings from the site walk.
Can I request a friendly amendment to your motion?
Okay?
Rather than request to extinguish the easement, could you consider changing your motion to request to get a legal opinion on whether or not we have the ability to extinguish the easement?
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, but that includes the site walk, though,
That includes the
too.
site walk?
Yep, okay,
Okay.
yes.
All right, so you have a first by Eileen, second by Grace. The motion is that we have a site walk for both the existing access and the access that is being contested. That site walk is going to determine whether or not we take up the contested easement and ask for legal clarification that if we have the authority to extinguish it. Does that sound clear?
Yeah.
So we have a first and a second. I'm going to do a roll call vote on this, please, and we'll start with Eileen.
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that's unanimous.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks
gentlemen.
for your time.
I feel like I was at the dentist.
I was today. It doesn't feel like the dentist. It's much worse. Thank you all.
Folks,
Thank
thanks
you,
for,
everyone.
thanks for
Thank you.
coming out. Thanks for coming out. That's what community is about.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Jay, welcome to the conservation.
Yeah, right.
Thanks. Trial by fire.
You're getting your feet wet right away.
All right, we're,
like
we're,
trial by
we're running a little over, so we're
out there
gonna
for
keep
sidewalk
going with the chair's report. Oh, boy.
The other site plan review isn't here?
No. Oh, yeah, so site plan review for Bradley Casperson has been withdrawn. And they withdrew that today, unfortunately. So we weren't able to update the, but actually worked to our advantage because we have some other stuff to do. So chair's report. We've had a busy few weeks on the commission. We have a new commissioner, Mr. Hildreth. Let's welcome Mr. Hildreth to the commission. You got a proper breaking in on his first site plan review.
No problem.
And Jay, we'll have you just say a few words later on in the meeting in other business, okay? Land manager has been bouncing all over town, meeting with a lot of different people, and I'm gonna leave the details to that when she does her report. River Lake, and we're going to title that site walk "A River Runs Through It," so that site plan review is going back to the drawing board after Grace and I looked at it and provided comments to the engineer.
Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah,
It was a good one.
and I have some good news from the Denali project, Denali Estates, up on behind Barker School there. You know where that project is. They have a mitigation requirement due to some wetland crossings, and so they're gonna be funding one of our future conservation purchases.
Wow.
And Mr. Metz is meeting with their representative to get the details of that. So that'll be forthcoming. And lastly, we have commission elections are going to be next meeting, 4/21, April 21st. I have gotten a commitment from Mr. Metz to remain vice chair, so we'll be seeking nominations, but I'd like to check with people first. I would be honored to remain your chairman. Mr. Metz is interested in continuing as vice chair. Eileen is interested in continuing as treasurer. We do need a secretary. That seat is currently vacant, and the secretary's position is different with our new leadership. It's no longer a recording secretary. It's actually a secretary where we're going to be sending out communications, soliciting conservation properties and things like that. And Jay, you might want to consider that as a role for you. And we'll take the rest of my stuff up under new business. Correspondence, we did get a great communication from CELT, and our land manager is going to talk about that when it comes to her. And we're going to do committee reports. Mr. Metz is absent today. There were no additional personnel interests. We have our 2 employees that we're very happy with both of them. Next report is Eileen Chabot for state compliance. She's the chair. Go ahead, Eileen.
We don't have any state compliance actions at the moment, but as the chair just reported, I have agreed to continue my work as treasurer, and I will assume approval of the time cards for, sending the time cards in for approval for our land manager and for our secretary, Tammy.
Okay, next is land acquisition, which is myself. Mr. Metz and I met with a representative for a prospective conservation property that we're going to talk about in non-public. Very exciting news, and we're gonna have a non-public meeting after this. And reporting compliance, Ms. Carver.
Is this on? Yes. Yeah, so we have a communication from Paula Belmore here from Chip. We have a check for $550 here in regard to the Corneliuson property for our compliance with reporting there.
Nice. Yeah, so we're at least from LCHIP, we if you're real good with LCHIP, they send you money, so. Let's see, what's next? We have TRC, Mr. Metz. I don't think he attended any TRC meetings since the last meeting, but I know he has one up and coming. And public outreach, Ms. Reisdorf. I know you and Rick have been working on some stuff, right?
Yes, we have an inquiry from a tree farm, Christmas tree farm owner who would like to use some of our property for that Christmas tree indiscriminately for how many years, however long, we don't know. Long-term lease, he says. He calls it beautiful agricultural aesthetic, and he will conform to the use of our conservation agreement, and he's a responsible stewardship of the property. And it will be returned to original status when it's completed, when he's done, but it doesn't sound like there's any end date. So Rick and I are kind of, Rick Metz and I are kind of reviewing that closely, and Beth, I want to talk to you too about that, potential properties for that kind of usage. So
Good
that's
stuff.
all I have at this moment.
Good stuff. Okay, Beth, land manager report.
Okay.
You want to do it there, or you want to come up?
Yeah, I got a whole thing.
Okay. Decision to hire a land manager, and most importantly, to hire Beth was you know, we're definitely breaking ground. She's been great. We got a lot of balls in the air. Mr. Foote said he's been the busiest he's ever been since being since being our liaison. So Beth's keeping us all busy. But go ahead, Beth.
All right. Ooh, visuals.
Okay, and so both of these are on here. Oops. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this. Okay. All right. So this, let's see, oh no, I'm so sorry. How do I make it big again?
The two tabs at the top of it,
Is it,
the trail assessment report.
all right, well, good enough.
Oh.
So I did just want to show this really quick because this is just kind of an overview of what I've been up to for the last month. And I just kind of wanted to review kind of the big things and show you that. So this calendar, any of you are welcome to view at any time, and you can get, it's all on the cloud, so you can get to any of the information that's going on with any of these projects anytime, and my goal is to make it all very easily accessible, right? So at the top here, I've got project folders, right? So if you were to click on that, it would bring you to, the folder, everything to do with the Broadview Community Garden. So I'll update you on that first. So we've had 22 inquiries from gardeners in total. We have 20 confirmed gardeners and 29 of our 30 plots reserved as of this morning. So we have that. For the forest fire risk mitigation, we've had meetings with John Neely, the state fire mitigation coordinator, and we actually were fortunate to have the fire marshal. Oh no, I've forgotten his name. Thank you, David Eastman, and the assistant fire chief, who is Greg Laro. Thank you. And then I was actually also. And so that was a very productive meeting, and we'll be meeting again with John Neely, and you'll get an in-depth report on that later. And then I was also able to meet with Gregory Laro to kind of get a download of how the fire department operates, to sort of help just have their perspective, right, when we're evaluating these properties, which has already come in handy in the trail assessment report that you'll see. So with the modernization of trailheads, Rick Metz and I met with Doug Rathburn in IT, and we actually reviewed some of what they've already been able to do that is already very functional, that just needs like some updates and some tweaking. And then I have gotten contacts from Rick Metz for the Conservation Commissions with Wyndham and Hampstead, which were both touted as like good examples to use for that kind of thing. Yep. And Paul Mahon is here tonight also. And one of the things that Doug Rathburn had asked is like, if there is an app or something that a lot of our trail users are already using, to like key him in on that, just so that we can go forward with that information as far as making decisions, and how we can integrate things. So for trail maintenance, I'll show you that in the Corneliuson's, really the only property that I've been to so far this week, or this month rather. But hopefully that'll be a good benchmarker. And then with the TRC package, Eileen, I would love to hook up with you at some point to get some of your, as far as like native plantings.
Yes.
And yes, and you're so detail oriented on these plans. Yeah. Okay, so there's that. And then, and water quality, that's end of April. That study's coming back, and we'll kind of get going on that, but that's on the back burner for now.
Nice.
Okay. And how do I make this? Is it this? No? Owen, I'm so sorry. How do I make it full page again? I'm so sorry. Upper right-hand corner.
He's so good.
You gotta go to slide program.
Yeah.
A blue bar. Oh, I see it. I see it. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Cornelius Farm property. Here we go. Take a journey with me through Cornelius Farm. Okay, so this is the current map that we have in the town archives. So I don't know, I assume that most of you are familiar with this property, yeah? And so this was, per Commissioner Spurl's suggestion, I played around with New Hampshire granite. And this is just some of the things that I found on there, but we won't get too far into that. But that is what I used to get like the property boundary lines, and you can see there's parcel numbers there. And that's what I used, so if you ever wanted to recreate it, there you go. And then these are just showing the owners. So this parcel is owned by the town of Derry. This parcel is owned by the Ferdinando family, and it has a conservation easement on it. And then after, just this morning, actually, or this afternoon, Commissioner Spurl and I went on a walk. Bob, okay, I'm sorry, I'm never sure how formal to be or how, we'll always go above and beyond before we, So Bob and I took a walk back on March 12th, and he used like a GPS tracker, right? And so just this morning, I had done some research as far as like an app that I could just download on my phone. I found this, and then this is sort of, I just had it follow me all around today when I went out there just today. So this is kind of what I got on that. And then, Bob, you had used it to like drop a pin on points of interest also, which exploring this app, I was able to do that also. So I went out and we'll explore kind of all of these points of interest briefly. So this is sort of that trail, right? That same trail overlaid over the boundary lines, just so you can see where it goes. And okay, so this is how the trailhead is looking. We've got down here is what it looked like on March 12th when Bob and I went out there. You can see the snow from the road is being piled there, kind of in front of the bulletin board. And then this is what it looked like out there today. The snow is gone. What do we call this? Is it a bulletin board or a
Trailhead sign.
Trailhead sign? Okay, that is what I will call it. So the trailhead sign's in really good shape. It's got, what it has in there is it shows the maps of all the conservation areas. It shows the map of Corneliuson, and it shows the hunting regulations, I guess, for 2024, and it shows the allowed uses for all of the conservation properties. And you'll see here is a drain. Can you all see my mouse? Yeah. Okay. So there's a drain at the trailhead, because the trail itself is kind of a river, which we'll say, or a stream, right? I did kind of venture off to the side in the woods there, and I did find a SELT tag and a Derry Conservation Commission tag. So this is actually looking towards the property, right? If I'm like standing right here and I'm looking this way, so there's the rock wall there, and then there's the two signs there, right, as where they would be expected to be. And then here are just some images so you can get a sense of, how the trail has in fact become a stream, or at least it is right now because it's so rainy, right? So it's very wet, and this picture was sort of my attempt to show that people using these trails have sort of begun to create their own trail, sort of going up and on the dry part. And you can see this is, right, so this area is the same as this area, just a different angle, right? So this is sort of like where people are walking to avoid the water. And yeah, that is the case, pretty much this whole green area here. It's very wet. There's just multiple wet areas to work your way around up through that trail. And then here's the fork in the road. I kind of turn this way so you can see this is your view looking this way, right? So, so Bob and I went right and we explored, what's going on down here. And here's what we found. So back when we walked the property on March 12th, there was still snow on the ground. So it was very easy to see the ATV tracks then. It's definitely not so obvious now that the snow has melted. This is what it looks like now. So this is going through, like there's a rock wall right here, and this path kind of goes through that rock wall. But, and I wish I had deleted this so we could see the property line. This rock wall, it doesn't appear to be denoting any kind of property line that I could tell anyway, because it's sort of like inside that like piece that's shaped like this. And then, so we have a wooden hunter's ladder up a tree at this point, sort of near this big field area. With last year's or, a few years ago's ladder, just kind of broken and discarded onto the side there. And then just to show you sort of, this is all in that same area, like that, that ladder, that whole area kind of also looks out onto this field. So it's kind of like right on the edge there. This is a tree down, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that this was standing when we went out there on March 12th. This is, so it's not in this like offset. This is when you come back up and then you're walking down
I think
right there.
There's many along the trail.
Yeah. Because I remember looking at one, and saying like, oh, look, there, you said like, oh, look, there's a dead ash. And anyway, now it's on the ground. And that, as far as the fire department is concerned, right? So they have a couple of pickup trucks, right? So as it was described to me, as far as like safety and access for fire reasons, what they have to contend with are, things like this that you wouldn't be able to get a pickup truck over, and mud in the road. So, if they're carrying, gallons and gallons of water, sinking into the mud is an issue. So those are kind of some of the things that I chose to focus on, the features, I guess, of the trail that I chose to focus on. And then this, if you're right here, sort of on the edge of the town-owned property and the Ferdinando easement, or yes, conservation easement. So this is what you see kind of when you walk out of that trail, this big agricultural field. This is what you see if you were looking the other direction, going back into the trail. The trail entrance is right there, right where that red pin is. And there's a CELT tag there and a Conservation Commission tag right there. And then you would actually walk this way over to here to get into the woods back right there. And this is, you can see there's this purple path and a green path, right? So the green path is kind of where we just went. And the purple path would be an alternate path from this fork in the road that doesn't take you to the agricultural field. It kind of keeps you in the woods, which Bob had mentioned, might be something that we want to encourage to.
It's in the back trail.
Yeah. Mm-hmm, yep. And then here's another hunter's ladder, metal hunter's ladder. It was present March 12th, and it's still present there today. And so this is the tag from CELT. So it is, I guess, questionably maybe, on the Ferdinando easement, not sure if it would actually technically be considered on town land or, but, it's right in that area. You can see it's to the north of, northeast of the stone wall that's there, if that's a marker. And then along this trail, we'll find more tags, just denoting where the Derry land is. And that is really that's the only blazing, I guess, like of which to speak of that we were able to notice is those metal tags. There's a lovely pond, sort of at the end of this trail before you get to this big open field that that was another thing the fire department had mentioned, is to make note of features like ponds that could be used to fight fires, and to have that noted on maps.
There's been ducks in that. Was there ducks there?
No, not today.
There's ducks nesting in that pond almost every year.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same pair, but there's always 2 mallards in that pond.
Is that a vernal pond?
You know what? I don't know.
You have to go back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we'll see, I guess, at the end of the summer. We'll see.
Well, now's a good time to check for
I don't think it's a
pools.
farm pond. I think it's just a
Say again?
Now's a
depression.
good time to check for
I don't
There's
know.
water in
Right,
it
yeah.
year round.
It looks
Yeah,
like it
'cause they
was
would-
dug out. The bank on the far side in this picture, the bank looks like it was kind of pushed up and it just drops off.
Really?
So I think they put it in to retain water, but certainly you've got the bigger pond
Yeah.
just down the way that is a deep pond.
There's a
Yeah.
there's a real
So you
farm
think
pond.
that may
probably
be
Yeah, the-
200 feet from
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so it's kind of keep a watch on it. It wouldn't surprise me if actually it just dries up midsummer.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But
I think it holds water.
I don't know how deep it is.
Yeah, I think it
didn't
holds
feel
water.
like wading in.
Okay.
All right, well, we'll find out. But yes, thanks for that question, because that was actually another thing that the fire department had said, is like to notate, is it a vernal or a perennial
Yeah.
body of water? Yeah. Okay, and then we got some very interesting things happening here with the trees. And Bob, I don't know if you want to explain this in more detail. It is, at least as Bob explained it to me, kind of a precariously, it's going to be an interesting job to deal with to get it down, I guess. Yeah.
Someone with some skill and knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
The town should take it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Got a lot of
Yeah,
widow trees
actually,
there.
the problem is the top of it is actually caught in a crotch on the other tree. So even if they get a piece of equipment
Yeah, right.
pulling it in, they're likely to damage the other tree too. That almost would require a boom.
Yeah. So with that in mind, I did kind of evaluate what the best throughway might be to get some heavy equipment through, and where, there's down here, this is I'm sinking into the mud. So obviously that's not a good path. And over here, we've got some mud going on. That's this pin drop right there. So from what I could tell, the best access path is going to be this purple path here, not up through this way. We'll get to that. But actually through, there is a path that's not a field, right, that goes through here. And then there's like a crushed stone pathway that goes, because this is pretty steep, like this goes uphill this way. And then this is very well maintained and packed down. And it's the highland also, so it's pretty dry. And then this is pretty steep coming down again, but it's very solid. And then here's the corner. I just felt like it was worth notating, like here's the rock wall, right? So we've got notated boundaries there. And then this was a question that Bob had, or something he pointed out, is, this diesel engine is in the water. It's more in the water now than it was when we visited, actually.
Where did that come from? Do we know? Was that
Well,
Phil's equipment?
Yes.
Phil's.
Yeah.
Phil's equipment?
Yep. Yeah, so that's the pump to water to water these fields. Yep. And it's on his easement, so I don't know, I know that there was a question about as far as the regulations or what, if that's even something that
Probably
we,
irrigation.
yeah.
My concern is that, well, it's actually the easement at that point. We have the easement, but having a diesel engine sitting in the water like that is probably
Yeah,
not
that's a problem.
Hopefully the tank is empty, but
But we
maybe
don't
we
know,
could
right?
suggest that he put it into one of those containment
Right,
tanks, so like a half a septic tank where if there was a spill, it would be contained.
right. Yeah, that's important.
So over on this side of the field, we have a pretty extreme washout. Where this is, it's pretty hard to tell from, I tried to get pictures that communicated it well, but it's a pretty deep cavern here, washout there at the top of the hill. And it does make it hard to walk, I will say, especially if you want people to stay out of the cornfield. And then, so this is just kind of showing the condition of the road. That's the English Range access. So this way, this red highlight here, it's in my opinion, pretty good condition, except for these just couple spots that seem pretty muddy and like a big truck might sink in it. And then I discovered this little treasure, is there's like this lovely little green path next to this is, more like a vehicle access road. And there's this parallel path that runs right next to it, that is a very pleasant walk. But it kind of ends like unintentionally, like it just kind of ends. And then there's just this, makeshift, clearly like people are just using this to go through. So my thought is maybe just giving that little area to get out a little more intention. So it doesn't feel like you're breaking the rules. And then there are a couple of refuse piles that I do believe are, well, I guess they would be on the Ferdinando easement, right? So again, I don't know what the regulations are on that. But I guess that's my job, so I can look into that. But I know that was something that you had mentioned of, homeowners piling like their lawn clippings and stuff like that on conservation area, which is something that we want to avoid. So I thought that was noteworthy.
Sadly, it happens on a lot of public land.
Yeah. And okay, so then on the English Range side, so I mean, I found this, I guess, on both ends really, on Holiday Ave and on English Range, is that the parking is kind of unclear. And the trailhead sign is again in good condition. Maybe it's not so easy to see here, but except there's this branch that's kind of hanging and it's like rubbing, causing some damage on the roofing there. Easy enough to remedy. And then this kind of struck me also is that, if someone were to park down on English Range and try to access the trail this way, to me, it's not very clear where to go, right? Like if I were going there for the first time, I might think that like, oh, like this looks like where I want to go, right? And then go up into this person's driveway, where like, this is actually where the conservation area is. And that is it. So,
Nice.
yeah. Thank you.
Good job. Nice work.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Thank you all.
Beth, do you have anything else? You good?
That's pretty much all for me. Yeah.
Good job.
Thank you.
Mr. Foote.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple quick things. Got an email today from the Hampshire DES. Starting July 1st, 2025, it will be illegal to put rechargeable lithium-ion batteries in with regular trash. So the town administrator and the DPW director tomorrow to figure out what kind of further instructions we put out there for the public to notice that.
They'll probably have something at the transfer station, maybe.
Perhaps. Again, I saw this email today and haven't had a chance to speak with them. It will be added to the existing RSA of 149M:27, which has to do with acid batteries and electronic devices. So basically, that's going to electric bikes, scooters, cordless power drills, power tools, lawn care equipment, portable devices like phones, laptops, tablets, headphones, Bluetooth speakers, toys, rechargeable toothbrushes, water picks, shavers, things along that line will fall into that category. So stay tuned for further information from the town. Hood Pond in Hood Park. So a few years back, that was one of my personal pet projects, was to try to get some revitalization with the Hood Park area and Hood Pond. The town council got on board. We all supported the idea. We had a bond that we took out. The problem with the redevelopment of Hood Pond wasn't any contractors willing to do the job. It was kind of too small of a job to do it. We talked about putting a small splash pad up there and redo the courts and whatnot, but hasn't been an appetite for that. So DPW's trying to do that on their own, try to oversee that. So this came up this past Saturday. We had our budget meeting, and this came up in our conversation with Mr. Fowler. So that's going to be re-looked into about how we can go ahead and try to bring up the revitalization of Hood Pond. When that came up, the water quality came up as well. I did tell him that the conservation maybe have some interest in maybe trying to work with the town and figure out what we can do to do that. With the 4A project coming in, Mr. Fowler believes that the water quality will be a lot better. There'll be less runoff coming from everything, so there'll be some catch basins and whatnot. So stay tuned for that. We'll have further information on what that will look like. 4A, if you haven't driven down Folsom Road, 4A is happening. It's all those trees are cut. Some of the houses have been taken down, and it's just it's currently in progress. What else we got here? Lastly, we'll be kicking off in the next week or two a cemetery project. For those who don't know, I know Eileen came up and helped me last year. A little project that I've taken on is to go up and revitalize, clean, and raise some of the veterans' headstones. And the town has been gracious enough to provide us with some stone dust to kind of elevate some of those headstones for the veterans. At the time, we didn't have all the veterans identified, where they were on the map, so we're in the process of trying to remap those out. Also in the process of working with Owen. Owen was a big help with that, and Doug Rathburn from the IT department. We're going to try to make sure we have all the proper documentation for who's there. One of the other members from the VFW is working on maybe doing some background on some of these veterans that are up there. So if you have time, go up there. You can walk around, look at some of the veterans, maybe Google them. And we have Medal of Honor recipient up there as well. So there's some basically from the Spanish-American War, Civil War, the Grand Army Republic. Like, there's so many valuable things up there. But if anyone's interested in helping out, please reach out to me. We would gladly take your efforts, whether it be an hour a week or 25 hours a week. Whatever you want to do, we'd be glad to help you. Eileen was able to do it, right? It wasn't so bad, right?
It wasn't bad at all. I enjoyed doing it.
Just like gardening, but a little
Yep.
more. No heavy lifting if you don't want to do it, but basically it's, what it would entail is polishing some of the headstones, maybe clean up around them, clipping them and whatnot. So please reach out. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Foot. Land maintenance report. Bob Sproul.
Yep. So we haven't taken any action, but walking the trail, we certainly saw plenty of need. Rails have been laid in a way that they intercept the natural flow. It would be nice to go in and fix a few of them, put them back into where they're supposed to flow. It will dry the trails up and people will stay in the trail bed, so. And then the only other question we had as we were walking, looking at like the the ladder that was in the trees, the deer stand. So the state has some rules and regulations pertaining to deer stands and when they're supposed to be removed and stuff, but I wasn't sure if Derry has any kind of rules or regulations for our conservation properties. So if you were to follow similar to the state setup, which I'm familiar with obviously, but the beginning section lists all of the properties, which can be updated at any time, but then the rules say, these rules pertain to the properties in section 1. And so if you add something new to the list, it then gets covered by those rules and regulations. So then you could put in like no fires unless in designated spots or no camping. And that would give the police department the capability of enforcing it. Right now, if there's no rules, you can tell people they can't camp there, but how are they supposed to know that if they don't have the rules? So it's something we should really look at, I think, unless there's already some available and I'm just not aware of it.
I thought that we did visit that, when, with the previous chair, he laid out a policy for how people would apply to be able to camp on our properties, and I thought we laid out some rules, some initial rules on that. We'd have to go back and look at that.
Yeah, I don't recall it completely. As far, that one tree stand's been on that tree for probably 5 or 6 years. It's been there a long time.
Or the metal one?
No, the metal one. The metal one's been there a long time. So Phil and his family all hunt that property. And some of those could actually be Phil's, but it's definitely something we should explore as part of your. We can develop. We're the custodians of those properties, so we can develop our own set of rules regarding that stuff.
It's nice to be no on easement properties if it has the landowner's permission.
Right.
But there's requirements. I think they've changed again, is that it's gone back to deer stands are supposed to be labeled with the
Person's
owner's
name and address.
information.
Yeah, I think
Not
that's
against
right.
them, but
Yeah.
it's just.
Right.
Yeah, agreed.
Any idea where I might find, where would I go to find those regulations?
Fishing game, probably.
Fishing game is, you can look up their rules under just state of New Hampshire fishing game.
Just for the state of New Hampshire, and then is there a layer that is just Derry as well?
Their rules pertaining to private property.
Okay.
So we could just, if we like what the state has, we can adopt their rules.
You can endorse it. Yeah.
Okay.
To add to Bob, to add to your, the trail maintenance piece, during our meeting with the fire chief and the state fire inspector, Beth and DPW Director Fowler were able to kind of connect and, start developing plans on how we're going to go to the next step on getting her the equipment she needs, and then kind of establishing the communication that she needs to get that stuff, like that tree, that Deadman tree, get it taken care of. And I think he was very receptive. I think he's fully on board with us, so it's exciting to have that connection made.
We have a very responsive Public Works Department.
Yeah.
And on that note, actually, because, since we're on trail maintenance, right, I do want to recognize that Paul Mahone is here from the Derry Track Club, who has offered to help with the trail maintenance. And so I guess for me, the next piece would be what comes next, right? So now we've done the trail assessment, and, we know there are some things that need to be handled by DPW, but I guess, how do we utilize their help and what comes now?
Yeah, so I think we need to transition into an action plan next. Yeah.
I propose we could do a Saturday, go to a property, and walk with some of the volunteers. We probably don't need a whole group of 50 people out there, but 2 or 3 that you would consider to be leaders, and go over the standards, the trail standards, which I would propose would pretty much follow Appalachian Trail standards, just because they're standards and they're available.
And maybe could you blaze while you're there?
Yep.
Yeah.
That would be excellent.
Walk along with the tools and do some work. Actually, there was, like the ashtray, it could be done with a handsaw, it could be done with an axe, it could be faster with a chainsaw, but
Right.
we're not going there, so.
Judging by inches, right?
The one on the ground, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was, just on that trail that we walked, there was a bunch of stuff, debris that could be flipped out of the way.
Yeah, I like
And
that.
then
That sounds good.
ultimately coming up with a plan of how to sign it, because like she indicated, when we walked in, we come to an intersection, and it's
Don't
like,
know where to go.
Yes,
where does
right.
it go?
Yeah.
Robert Frost always took the
Yeah.
path less traveled.
Yeah. And I think that you had mentioned also when we went on that walk about voting on like colors that we use, like that.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I did try to find that
So-
information.
We have a
but-
standard.
So, yeah, do we have a standard?
Yeah.
So there's 2 different processes for marking out trails. A lot of people like the idea of having a white trail, a blue trail, a green trail.
Right.
Those are okay. The problem kind of starts to come down is, and the second part of painting is the boundary lines should be marked. And the only thing we saw out there were some celt signs and I think we saw one conservation sign.
No, there were, from memory, at least 2. There was one Derry Conservation Commission sign down on like the corner border
Yep,
by
yep,
Holiday
right.
Ave, but that, I kind of like
Yep.
went into off trail into the woods. There was another one on one of the tree, right? There was like the 2 trees, and then you enter the path into the woods through them, and one was Celt and one was Derry Conservation. So I think there were just those 2 though.
So-
Yeah.
Bigger landowners across the state typically will paint their boundary. So if you're walking along and you come to a line going through the trees that's sky blue, you're either entering or leaving state land. And therein lies part of the problem with painting trails all different colors, is that, like National Forest is red, so if you were painting trail signs as red, somebody could get onto a boundary line and head off into the hinterlands. The tags are good. They're expensive. You should only be putting them up like every maybe 500 feet or particularly at corners.
Right.
But painting the boundary lines would be something that needs to be done. And then marking the trails, whether we go with a single color for the trails and then it requires more signage to let people know. So if you're gonna have like Beaver Pond Loop, there should be a sign that explains
That
that it's a
color,
loop or something like that.
All right, so let's next meeting, let's agree to a color for our color, whatever color we want. Okay? We can do whatever color we want, so that's.
Well, we'll need 2 colors at least.
Our homework for next meeting is 2 colors.
Yeah.
What are gonna be our 2 colors? I like your idea about going in with the volunteers, blazing the trail, and just identifying stuff that is above our pay grade, and then we give that information to Mike
Yep.
Fowler, and we'll have him sort that part out.
Okay.
Sound good?
Just to be clear, so are we going in to do the work with the volunteers first and then reaching out to DPW with things that are above and beyond volunteers?
That's my
And
suggestion.
is that the Saturday with 2 to 3 leaders, or is this a separate, like after we meet with the 2 to 3 leaders to discuss standards?
So with the volunteers, my question is, do we have to have them sign off on any kind of liability paper or anything else?
Never have in the past.
And if there's more than 3 of us, we have to post it, right? Or more than 2 of us?
Is it 3?
Quorum, yeah.
More than 3 or more? Or, no, 4.
It's quorum.
Yeah, it's 4. It's 4, so 3
4? Oh.
3 commissioners.
Well,
are
We can
okay.
set it up so that you work separately, that you never come together.
Well, I don't think you're going to have 3 commissioners there anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only commissioners.
Yeah.
And it's only full commissioners, so I think you'll be okay with that. My suggestion is do the group, blaze the trails, identify the bigger stuff, and get a report to Fowler on, hey, we need help on this stuff.
When you're saying blaze the trails,
Yeah.
are you talking just walking along and making sure that it's open and everything?
No,
Or
I'm
are
talking
you
about
physically
marking.
talking painting?
Painting.
Yeah, so we'll need to know the paint color.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, so can you plan on doing that between this meeting and the next? Or do you want to wait till after the next meeting? You should wait, because you got to get rid
No,
of.
wait, the
decide
blazing, the blazing can go anytime that paint won't freeze.
You gotta
But
get out of
going
mud
out
season,
and
though.
clearing the trails, I'd like to engage the volunteers
Yeah.
and start looking them out.
My
and-
suggestion is if you wait a little while, a lot of the real muddy areas will be much better.
Yes.
So why don't we agree to a color next meeting, and then you can schedule it after that meeting.
Sounds great.
Sound good?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. We have, all right, so reports are done. Update on conservation activities, we're gonna jump off that because it's getting late. Other business, we have three requests from the scouts, and Grace is gonna make a motion on that stuff.
Yeah, so there's a request for spring recruitment drive, and we're wondering if they could use Broadview Conservation Area on May 17th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. to have that activity where they'd have games and other activities for the kids. It's a recruitment opportunity. On Saturday, June 14th, is the retirement of flags in accordance with ritual and tradition. The Derry VFW will join the Scouts and Junior ROTC and others to do that tradition of burning these flags. The fire department has been contacted already and has secured permit. So they would like to do that activity. And then the third one is a Scoutmaster would like to do a bonfire for the Easter morning sunrise service for First Parish Church at Broadview Fire Pit. They will pull the permits needed. So those 3 things. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept these 3 activities, proposed activities, as part of our public service.
Can I just add a little note,
Yes,
a
ma'am.
pin, with the Boy Scouts, right? So Noah Duarte is scheduled to come till the community gardens over on Broadview. And I just wonder if maybe, as part of the package deal, the Boy Scouts might be willing to help stake the garden plots, because that's always a job that I know, Will has said, it's about 6 people to do that. Just a thought. Just want to throw that out there since the timing kind of lines up.
Yeah.
So in my response to there's 2 different troop masters in that, I can ask them for their help.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion for the 3 dates by Grace. Do I have a second on the motion?
I'll second it.
So we have a first by Grace, a second by Bob. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. All right, moving along, I need a chair for the Community Garden Subcommittee. And I asked Jay if he would be interested in doing that. And Jay, did you put any thought into that?
Yes, I'd like to do that.
Okay, so I'll take a motion to make Jay Hildreth, our new commissioner, chair of the subcommittee on the community garden.
I'd make a motion for Jay Hildreth to be the chair of the Broadview Gardens Subcommittee.
Say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, welcome to your first chairmanship. The only vacancy we now have as you need to get a member to join you on that subcommittee, so you're the chair. At your leisure, get someone to join you. It would basically be the person that would report out on that committee if you were absent at the meeting, okay? See if you can find a friend. Okay, reporting compliance. And the last thing, we have to schedule that site walk for the easement. And new rule, I don't know if it's a new rule or an old rule, but site walks now have to be posted as a meeting.
Yeah.
So we have to let, actually Tammy is gonna let Sheila know tomorrow when that site walk is gonna be.
Posted at the library.
Has to be posted everywhere because it's actually a Conservation Commission meeting. If more than 3 commissioners join, and I think on this one, we should probably all try to get there. So, get out your calendars. You know I don't like doing these walks on the weekends. So how is next Monday for everybody? That would be the 14th.
14th?
Monday, the 14th. Everyone available? Anyone available on the 14th?
Good to me.
Yeah, that's good. Anyone know? What's the earliest people can do it?
Can we do it earlier in the day, or are we looking towards the afternoon? I mean, Bob, you work, right, so,
Yeah.
or do you want it in the?
I get out at 4, but
Okay.
I can certainly get down here earlier. I just, the last one, I intended to be here, and right
Yeah.
when I was packing up, the commissioner walked in and asked me some questions, so it was like, yeah.
Would you prefer it be like 4:30 or 5, or?
Sure.
I mean, we got enough daylight that we could have it at 5,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, whatever works for others.
Okay, Monday, the 14th is 4 okay?
Yeah.
4 is good?
Yeah.
All right, so Monday, the 14th at 4 o'clock, we will meet at the paper road on, is that Olson or Ballard? Olson? I guess it's Olson, right? Is it Olson?
Jewel, wasn't it? Or
We're gonna
It's the
meet
end
at
of
Jewel
Olson
Lane,
where
at the end of
Ballard-
Jewel
Yeah, I think the
Lane?
parking situation's better at the other
Oh,
place,
okay.
though. Yeah, at the paper road part. There's a,
Oh, that's
Yeah,
the
paper
one on
rolls
Jewel.
at the end of Jewel Road, right?
Jewel's the one that's drawn in.
Jewel's the one that, is the one that's under contest.
Yeah,
Right.
we're gonna
Right.
look at both of them, though, right?
We're gonna look at both
Yeah.
of them, but we're gonna
Okay.
park at the other one.
Okay.
What is it? It's the continuation of what road?
Ballard and,
Yes, Ballard.
Is it Ballard?
yeah, that's where Ballard starts or something.
Hopefully you can find out.
Olson.
It's Olson, right?
Olson ends and Ballard connects to it.
We'll be able to
But
find
I think the
that, you
paper road
think?
is actually the continuation of Olson Road. That's where Olson Road was gonna keep going.
Right,
Yeah.
yep.
All right, so,
We'll be able to find that, okay?
So, I don't know, I drove by it like 3 times trying to find it. It
Yeah,
doesn't stand
yeah,
out.
that's
but,
why, yeah, I was a little
yeah.
nervous about that.
I've been on the Jewel Road one, and we could go to Jewel, you wanna do it on Jewel
Yeah,
Road?
I remember the Jewel Road one.
Wanna do that? Go
We
in
were,
on Jewel
we were
Road?
able to, I mean, there is a cul-de-sac there, and
Where your
it was
conservation.
rather circular, there were places to park.
Okay.
And
I
like-
remember during the sidewalk, that's what we did.
Like
We
they said,
parked-
when you get there, they'll space the cars out so you're
Yeah,
not
we'll
blocking
space them out, we
somebody's
won't block
driveway.
anyone's driveway, certainly, no.
All right, so Tammy, can you send a communication to Sheila that Conservation Commission is gonna have a site walk at number 12 Jewel Road on Monday, the 14th at 4
The reason
o'clock?
you miss it is
Yeah.
because,
It's so skinny.
And then you can, and if you can
this
also
driveway
send
goes
that to,
in,
why don't you send it to us and her in the same
you're
email?
gonna be back
Thank
here,
you.
and you'll see it, meanwhile, the road is curving around that way, and so, yeah.
Okay, so we're meeting at
Yeah.
Jewel then.
Meeting at Jewel, and we're gonna get a reminder from the secretary. And I wanna move it on, it's 5 past 9, this meeting's going longer
Set
than I
a
want.
new record in the wrong
Yeah.
direction.
Yeah, we had a lot to do tonight, though. So I will, we do have to go into a brief non-public. Do we need to hear from this gentleman? Do we need to hear from you, sir?
Would you,
Beth?
It's the trail well here.
I would like to get your thoughts on as far as like what y'all use for an app, maybe before. What is it? Strava. All right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, all trails.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So you don't need to come,
Gaia
to the-
has
do you
a
need
bit
to
of
come to the
it, too.
podium and talk at all? No, okay. All right, so it looks like we're done. I'm gonna request a motion to go into non-public.
Move to go into non-public per RSA 91A:3, Section 2. A motion to do, will be for, what is it? Yeah, I have it, land
Acquisition, yeah.
land acquisition,
That's right.
Section 1. That one? RSA 91A:3, Section 1.
You gotta read the
The
whole thing.
Conservation Commission may recess a public meeting for a period of time in order to excuse itself for the purpose of discussing matters not subject to the definition of the meeting.
Yeah, that'll work. So we have a first. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Bob. So before we vote, can we invite, actually, let's vote on this first. Eileen?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Can I have a motion to invite the council liaison?
Yeah. Move to invite Counselor Foot.
Okay, so we have a first to invite Councilor
Second.
Foot. Second by Eileen. All, roll call again. Eileen?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Yes.
Grace? Chair votes yes.